And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FT off. Bring in FT off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.
Welcome in, everybody, to another NSF live stream. On your screen there, you can see Starlink 6-80 is on the pad at Slick 40 in Cape Canaveral. Awaiting a second attempt to launch. We are just under 1 hour to the T0 and the opening of the window for today's launch. I'm Gene Rowley for NSF. I appreciate everyone joining us today. It's going to be a busy launch day. We have, I don't have a fancy picture yet. I want a fancy picture in the upper right-hand corner. I sent it in. We'll see what happens. Maybe the powers that be in the back room can make some magic happen. Everybody else has a fancy picture. I don't have a fancy picture. Well, we'll see what happens today. It looks like a much more beautiful day, more beautifuler, more weather gooder, more better, right, Max? That's the way we say it. Max Evans is in the field today with his cameras. Max, how are you?
I mean, I guess that's certainly one way to put it, Gene. But good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Yes, weather is looking much more favorable today as opposed to yesterday evening, where we were racing a couple storm cells that were coming in over from the West Coast, and they were in very close proximity to the Cape when the scrub was eventually called. But weather looking a lot more optimal today, and we are hoping to see Falcon 9 get off the ground in just 1 hour's time.
And we'll see if that happens or not. We all feel pretty good today. There's no clouds. There's no weather coming in as it was yesterday. You guys were under the rain when you were packing up cameras and everything. But there's another launch this evening, and a lot of our crew is gearing up for that one. But I am joined by Alex. Sawyer was on the broadcast yesterday, and Alex is joining us today to answer all your questions. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. 2 launches today. And of course, we are hoping to get that historic flight later today of that crew launch to a polar orbit. That's going to be some exciting stuff later today.
Yeah, I'm going to be up for that one. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not hosting that one. I know Jack and Sawyer and a couple other folks are going to be there. You might be there too, but
I'm too.
I'm looking. Yeah, I think the whole crew is going to be watching that one. It's a historic launch. Fram 2 coming up later tonight. We are looking at Starlink 680, and the booster you see on the pad there is booster 1080 on its 17th flight attempt. If you have questions about what you're looking at, if you have questions about Starlink or the Falcon 9 or what's going on, or pretty much anything in spaceflight, you can go ahead and tag us at NASASpaceflight in the chat, and those will come across, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. Alex and Max, a couple of the smartest guys I know when it comes to this stuff, will answer your questions. And some of them have already started to come in, but really early on, we had some people join us as pad rep members and red team members. And I want to make sure that we, even before we started the broadcast, like an hour ago, Aiden jumped in and became a pad rep member. Aiden, thank you so much for becoming part of the family. I said something in chat on YouTube just to welcome you in, but now that the stream has started, I can officially say that. So welcome in. Thanks for becoming a pad rep member. And then Sean Yoder, about a half hour ago, became a red team member. Sean, we appreciate you. What we do here at NSF is made possible by you guys joining and becoming members. And don't forget that Capcom and above gets access to the Discord, the member Discord. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as well here at NSF. So start getting those questions in. We'll get to as many of them as we can. We are at T-minus 55 minutes. And right off the bat, Alex, someone asked the question about the Starlink numbering system. So just what was it? A couple days ago, we launched Starlink 11 dash something or other. I can't remember what it was. And this is Starlink 6-80. So what exactly is 6-80? We hear words like shells and things like that. Could you answer that? And that is actually from Creative Bytes TB asked that question at NASASpaceflight. I don't know either, Creative Bytes. So let's see what Alex says.
Yeah, so they have multiple different different groups, right? Different not I wouldn't say shells, because actually some of the groups have overlapping shells, right? Like for example, Group 6 and Group 5 launch to the same shell, but they carry different satellites, different types of satellites. So that's usually what you see with these groups. It's like some different groups have differentiations between the others, right? Even when they launch to the same shell. Just to put an example, the Group 11 missions from Vandenberg, those are missions that launch V2 mini satellites to a 53-degree inclination orbit, but from Vandenberg. Whereas Group 10 missions, which we have seen recently as well with the Bahamas landing, for example, those carry V2 mini satellites to a 53-degree orbit, but from the Cape. And so they sometimes do this thing of like, the different groups just have different, for example, again, as I was saying, either launch sites, or they launch different types of satellites or different mixes, right? Group 6 missions, like today's mission, are missions that launch only V2 mini satellites on board the Falcon 9, and they launch to a 43-degree inclination orbit. And generally, except for 2 of them, they launch from the Cape. There were only 2 of them that launched from Vandenberg. So that already, right off the bat, I guess, we already know what's going to be launching today. That's going to be V2 mini satellites to a 43-degree inclination orbit. That means it's going to go southeast out of the Cape. Now, why the 80? Well, the 80 is just the number of the mission, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. And so far, there's only been 71 missions, and the reason why it's 80, it's because they skipped some of the numbers. And so they've been jumping around here and there. And so, for example, 650 has not been launched, but 49 and 51 have been launched. For example, 667 was not launched, and many others as well in sort of in between 61 and 680. There's others in the future as well that are being scheduled for the Group 6 missions, other groups as well, from Group 12, Group 11 from Vandenberg, etc., etc. But that's all it means. It's just the number of the mission, and it's not the number of the order of launch, which is something that's usually complicated to understand if you're not in the industry, right? But think about it sort of like a I don't know, like a series of different cars that are being manufactured, and then you sort of manufacture some cars in a series of numbers, but you deploy them, you sort of sell them in different orders. Similarly, you have a list of different missions that you are planning, in the case of SpaceX, of course, and you're just launching them out of order. That's all it means. That, it's the 71st mission for Group 6, but it is the mission 80. So yeah, there you go.
So let me just sum this up for everybody who just joined us. It makes perfect sense that it does not make any sense at all. There's no rhyme. There is a rhyme or reason, and it's just it's a weird numbering system. Very, very strange. And let's see, Booster 108017, as you said, a lot of people want to know if this is a stubby nozzle or no. The answer is no. This is not a stubby nozzle. This is a regular old nozzle. Thank you, Soul Productions, for that at NASASpaceflight. Everybody wants to know. Stubby nozzle. No, it's not a stubby nozzle. If you joined us yesterday for the launch, you'll notice the skies look a lot clearer. They look a lot bluer. The sun is shining, and the wind is not pushing our cameras all over the place. So if Chris, who is, again, producing this one in the control room, mashing buttons and getting everything ready, has some weather overlays that he's got some magic he can bring up. There you go. On your screen. You might have to zoom in on it a little bit. It's tough to see, but Yesterday, it was an 80% chance of violation. Today, it looks like it's about a 30% chance of violation. And we're going to go to Max because he's our non-weather weatherman because Max is actually out there with the camera. So, Max, talk to us about the weather today.
Yeah, we are the ones who are actually in the weather, so it feels appropriate to be talking about it. But weather today, just to put it simply, compared to yesterday, looks miles better, just in terms of forecast and what our Mark 1 eyeballs can see. As you can see, we had it on the screen. At the opening of the window, there's only about a 20% chance of weather violation, and it is a 3-hour launch window. And toward the end, there's only about a 35% chance of violation. The primary concerns being a low to moderate risk for the booster recovery weather southeast of the Florida East Coast. But otherwise, with what our eyes are looking at right now, just some puffy clouds in the sky, moderate breeze, which actually helps because it is pretty warm today, about the warmest we've had this year, I think. It's almost 90 degrees, and it feels quite toasty, especially after the mild winter we had. But it feels great today. Weather looks much better than yesterday, which bodes well not only for Starlink 680, but the later Fram 2 mission, hopefully just following just a few hours after this one. So we are looking much better today than we did yesterday.
Yeah, and the weather is super important. We always talk about winds aloft, winds on the ground, and the cameras are not being pushed all around like they were yesterday. And again, weather later this afternoon is going to be changing. I know some folks in northern Florida are having some weather. It passed through Alabama several hours ago, so it makes sense that it's into Georgia and northern Florida. But down in and the Space Coast looks really good. You can see for yourself on the screen. Very, very stable camera shots. So we're looking forward to hopefully them taking this off in T minus 48. Now remember that is the opening of the launch window. They can launch at the beginning. They have some time to push back if they need to, but we don't anticipate that to happen today. One of the things we do anticipate is that you guys are going to send us tons of questions at NASASpaceflight. Get them in the chat. And we'll get to as many of them as we can. And, I mentioned earlier a lot of folks joining us as Red Team members and Pad Rep members. And today people are going to be gifting things and things like that. One of the things that you can do to help us is to go to shop.nasaspaceflight.com and pick up a piece of merch. Pick up a Flight 8 patch, or if they're still available, some earlier patches, some of the stickers. I got a whole pack of stickers the other day, and they were fantastic because, we like to collect those patches as we go through. And it just helps us, okay? That money doesn't come to me. It doesn't come to anyway. It really just helps us get these cameras out there, our 24-hour live stream cameras, keep things going. And it's all because of you guys. So you'll hear us say that a lot, but we do appreciate it. And we love seeing people with NSF patches on and the stickers and so on. And it just makes what we do, it makes it available for us to do what we do. We're just a bunch of rocket nerds like you guys that love to see rockets launch. Like Graham, who just became a Pad Rep member. Graham, thank you so much for joining the family. Every little bit helps, and all of it goes to bringing great launches. Like we just had Adrian in Norway at the ESAR launch, right, at their test flight. We go out to Starbase. We've got more New Glenn rockets launching later this year. We've got the Fram 2 mission coming up later tonight. So there's always things that NSF folks are planning for and getting out there and taking our equipment out there. And it's all because of your support. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We can't say that enough. All right. I can't even say this name. It's obviously in Chinese. At NASASpaceflight, hey, can I ask, is this yesterday's launch that was delayed or 2 days in a row? Yes, this was scheduled to launch yesterday. The window opened around 3:25 Eastern yesterday. And the weather was terrible, but they kept pushing it back. So yeah, at about, I guess it was 5:55, they actually were like, yeah, we're just going to scrub this for today. So yes, this is yesterday's mission. Now it's today's mission, and the weather is absolutely beautiful, and we will hopefully get that off here in about 46 minutes. Alex, I want to bring you back in. I know you're busy in the back channel. You're talking about all kinds of stuff, but right now we're coming up on 45 minutes to launch, and we have some graphics as we get closer into the 20-minute event and so on. What's happening at the pad right now with the ground support equipment, or the pad at T minus 45 minutes?
Well, right now, in terms of preparing for the launch and everything, they're just going through the usual go-no-go poll on the launch control center. That's usually around this time when it begins, and then it runs for 5-7 minutes or so. And at T minus 38 minutes, the launch director verifies that everything is go for propellant load. So what they do around this time is, all of the different controllers and everything, they have their own electronic polling system and everything. That it's not like the old style, go, electric systems, go, and all that stuff, right? It's just they push a button and it's all done and fancy and everything. But yeah, that's essentially what it's going on right now. If everything is still, of course, go for that liftoff in 45 minutes from now. After that, we're going to have the start of propellant load sequence, which will begin at T minus 35 minutes with the auto sequence starting at that time. It's an automated countdown sequence that essentially starts all of that procedure of loading propellant onto the vehicle, starting with RP1 on both stages and liquid oxygen on the booster. Then as we progress, those things will, shift around and everything. Some will close, some other propellants will start. We'll go through all of that, of course, as we get closer to T0.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the vents that you'll see on the screen, some of the important vents and how they're chilling the lines and so on. Quentin asks the question at NASASpaceflight, where is the booster landing today? And Quentin, I can answer this one. It's just read the instructions. It's one of their drone ships, and it's in the Atlantic. Just, I guess it would be northeast of the Bahamas, and there you can see on your screen where that drone ship is from the launch direction there in the upper left-hand corner. It travels southeast and then lands on that drone ship. So that's where that is, bobbing out in the Atlantic. And as we talked about the weather just previously, there is a low, possibly moderate chance of them going outside of the weather permitted in the recovery zone. 20% chance, not really that big, but it's still a chance, right? So we have to keep watching that, because not only do they have to worry about the weather at the launch site, but they also have to worry about the weather catching a booster. Boosters are important, saves money. We want to do that. So we'll give you the rundown of this booster. This is booster 1080. Today was its 17th attempt. The turnaround time for this booster, I guess, is do we add a day, Alex? It was 39. Yeah, 40 days, 20 hours, 31 minutes. This has flown a lot of Starlink missions, but it was actually the Axiom 2 booster. So kind of a storied booster, and then it flew the Euclid mission, then Axiom 3. So you can see that on the screen there. And again, just read the instructions out in the Atlantic, and Bob is going to be recovering those fairings. Do we know if those are new fairings or not, Alex? We don't know that, do we?
They're probably used, yeah.
Yeah, we sometimes, if we get a shot of them, we'll track them, but most of the time we don't get shots of the boosters. The interesting thing about this one is it's carrying 28 V2 mini satellites, and normally it's 27, right, Alex?
Well, the maximum that they have been able to carry up to this point has been 27. But yeah, this one is carrying 28 for this one in particular. Yeah, that's because they're using optimized satellites. Essentially, they are being able to reduce the mass of the satellites while keeping and even improving the performance of the satellites, being able to deliver more capability down to users on the ground. And so, more satellites, more better, as Jack will say, right? And so, and if on top of that, it's also, with better capabilities, why not?
Yeah, optimize the booster, optimize the satellites, get more mass to orbit. As we talked with Sawyer yesterday when we were talking about the stream before it did not launch. It amazes me that it's a 450-second orbital flight. It's the 100th Falcon launch since the last failure. And this will be the 113th landing on just read the instructions out of 114 attempts. So only one of those. 84 successful landing by a Falcon booster since the last one failed, and 243 launch dedicated to Starlink. So there's a lot of them up there. And if you watch Alicia every Friday on This Week in Spaceflight, she'll tell you exactly how many have been launched and exactly how many have been re-entered and how many have reached their operational orbit. So I highly recommend you turn into This Week in Spaceflight and check it out every Friday. So, Max, I'm going to come to you with some of these questions. Let's see. So one of the things this is not a Starlink question. This is not a Falcon 9 question. But let's see. That's a good name. Pop Tropica wants to know at NASA Spaceflight, what happens after the webcast ends? Now, I'll start, and then I'll go to you, Max, and you can talk about what you do. After the webcast ends, what we typically talk about, what we did. We talk about the launch. We thank everybody. I mean, we got people in the field. We got people in the production room. They're doing their thing. And then we just kind of sit around and we talk about upcoming missions. We laugh and joke and have a good time. That's from my end. I can't speak to Chris, and I don't know if Chris wants to jump in and talk about what happens on their end, but it's a lot more technical. They mash buttons and they make sure all the streams are working right and all the replays and all that stuff. Max, what happens when the stream ends on your end from being in the field?
So are we talking about Falcon 9 here? Or are we talking about like what we do personally?
The question says after the webcast ends. So if it's a fun question to me, I got a big smile on my face because it's kind of that behind the scenes, like on YouTube, it just go, we return you now to your regular programming, whatever. But for us, we just kind of keep going with rocket launches. But specifically, you've got camera gear and stuff.
So I think we can answer this question on two fronts, just in case the viewer who's asking this question means it either way. So I think just to keep it simply, SpaceX ends their live streams after first stage landing and also second stage, second engines stop one or SECO 1, and then they refire the MVAC engine about 54 minutes into flight to circular orbit, and then the Starlink satellites are deployed about a little over an hour.
Oh, I think we lost Max. There he is.
Oh, here we go.
In the field.
Yeah, I guess that's just perks of being in the field today. But so obviously SpaceX does not show SES-2 or SECO-2 or the Starlink satellites deploying. Unfortunately, not anymore. They end the program after second engine, or SECO-1, I should say, second engine cutoff. In terms of what we do here at the press site, there is usually a lot of gear that we have to pack up. I know, like today, we have 2 cameras and live streaming equipment to support each camera that needs to get packed up and relocated over towards the building and at the hut, as we call it, up the hill, to get ready for Fram 2 in just a few hours. So we've got a pretty busy day. I mean, it's never usually we stay on comms for a bit and joke around, talk, but might not be enough time for that today. But normally, I think it's just a case of we go back to being humans afterwards.
Alex.
Yeah,
there's a shot of you, Max. Look at that. Is that you?
Oh my God! Hi.
Hey, look at that.
That's awesome. And that's what it looks like. He is in the field. No kidding.
Quite literally in the field. Yes, all the way down at the end of the press site lawn, because that is the only spot that we can get a good enough view of Slate 40 to support a live stream with.
That was a shot. That was a shot from Gage. Gage is the miracle worker. And again, in the background, pushing buttons, moving cameras, all that technical stuff. Gage is the man. Alex, what do you do after the stream? Alex?
Yeah, so after the stream is done, I normally just have to do more stuff. Usually updating spreadsheets, and also having to take care of other NSF stuff, like doing scripts and whatnot. Or like today, after the stream, we have other things related to NSF, and then we have the Fram 2 live stream. So that's going to be back-to-back streams. That's going to be really funny.
It's going to be a great day for people who like rocket launches, and people who like rocket launches are Apocalypse Cow, who join us and then gift Red Team memberships. Thank you, gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Apocalypse, give everybody a moo in the chat for Apocalypse Cow, guys. Thank you so much for those Red Team memberships. Ulster Booster 1058, Cashew Crew, thank you, also gifting 5 Red Team memberships. And by the way, if you receive one of these memberships, say thank you in chat, just a real quick, hey, thanks. You can hit the @ key and then start typing their name. It'll pop up, and then you can just say thank you directly to them, or go ahead and just spam chat with your thanks to these guys for for gifting the Red Team memberships, for these folks doing that. And then Graham Marsh upgrading to Red Team. Wow, you just joined, Graham. Wow, awesome. Welcome. Keep going. There's a lot more cooler stuff when you get up there. Awesome. Welcome to the family. So let's see, T-minus 36 minutes. And you said we should start seeing some, what are they? They're prepping the lines. Is that right, Alex? No, he's gone. Okay. So, Max, they're prepping the lines at 35 minutes? Isn't that, or like fuel load? And
so prop load itself for RP1 and first stage liquid oxygen should be starting at T-minus 35 minutes exactly. All that being said, that is only the case if they have the launch director has a go no go poll at T minus 38 minutes, and by this point in the count, that would have already happened, and that person would have verified whether or not they are go to proceed with prop load of the first stage of Falcon 9. So we should see super chill RP1 and super chill liquid oxygen start to flow into the first stage at T minus 35 minutes, but we might not be able to visually confirm that until around, I would say, probably 32, maybe T minus 32 minutes or T minus 30 minutes. Whenever we see a frost line, that is our visual indicator that we are on for today. That is when first stage load begins. They begin propellant load of the upper stage just after the T minus 20 minute event. Or, well, I should say that's only for the second stage lux, because of course the RP1 on the upper stage is not super chilled. They will clean and purge down the lines in the transporter erector at T minus 20 minutes, and that is the big old vent that we see flowing out of it, and that is in preparation for thermal conditioning to load liquid oxygen into the upper stage. But we should be seeing some visual confirmation here, hopefully in the next few minutes, hopefully within the next 2 or 3. But that would be a strong indicator that we are on for today.
Yeah, and we've got folks listening in, and we'll watch your cam reviews. And there's a question came in from R Rex. At NASASpaceflight, will there be better / closer views when the rocket gets launched? I'm going to go ahead and stay with you, Max, because you're there. You've got the cameras. And by the way, guys, I'll go ahead and just preface this one. We do the best we can. We get as possibly close as we can. But you're seeing some of the heat distortion in the atmosphere and things like that. And when the rocket launches, Max is going to do his absolute best to track it. We have some robot or tracking from the guys in the control room. But Max, there's really no place closer you can get to set up, is there?
Yeah, usually access for Starlink missions isn't necessarily there unless you are one of the lucky few, including us, who has 24/7 access to the KSC Press site here, northwest of the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Stoke 40. So this is about as close as we can get over here. For certain select missions, we do have access over on Cape side, which gets us access anywhere from 3.5 all the way up to under 3 miles from the launch pad, which does look a lot better, but that is not the case for today. But we are doing the best we can. Heat distortion be damned.
And the views are great, by the way. When this thing launches, you've got all kinds of cameras. We have our 24/7 live cameras. We'll have people robotically operating some of the cameras, and Max in the field. So RX, don't worry about it. You're going to have some great shots of this Falcon 9, as we always do for Starlink missions, and then all of the other missions out of the Cape, including Fram 2 later tonight. Go ahead and set that reminder for your YouTube channel that you want to watch that one. Alex, a question for you. Look at this. There you go. Question for you, Alex. This is a really interesting one because it comes in from Tony Time at NASASpaceflight. Is it possible for SpaceX to launch 2 Falcon 9s at the same time? And I'm going to kind of add on to this question from Tommy, because when they launch a Falcon Heavy, technically during that meeting, they are flying 4 vehicles at the same time. Right? 2 side boosters, center booster, and a second stage. Could they not fly 2 Falcons at the same time because it's still 4 vehicles in flight?
That is a good question. I think from a resources standpoint, they can even do a Falcon Heavy and a Falcon 9 not launched at the same time, but overseen at the same time. It feels to me at the very least that perhaps launches back to back, like right at the same time, right at the same second, for example, might be too much, right? Think, for example, like an airport kind of thing, right? Like 2 aircraft launching from the same runway, taking off from the same runway at the same time. That will be a bit weird, right? And you have other concerns as well with aircraft. But anyways, my point being that if you want to be able to take, to be able to oversee that launch operation from a launch control center standpoint, you probably want at least some small separation. And if you think about it, Falcon 9 gets into orbit within 8 minutes. So I think maybe simultaneous launches might not be entirely, not impossible, but at least not desirable, right? But at least within 8 minutes or 10 minutes, for example, that could even be, right on the realm of possibility in terms of, taking a look at the launch and being able to oversee it, because this is all automated, right? The countdown goes automated, the launch commands and everything, all of that is automated, and so the rocket just goes on its own. Another thing that goes automated, just because I'm talking about this and I'm seeing that Frost, is the propellant load sequence, and I'm seeing Frost already on the first stage on that liquid oxygen tank. So I think that is confirmation that we have propellant load underway.
That is
Thank
indeed
you,
down there at the
Chris.
bottom. Yep. Back to that question, it's an interesting question, and I've never heard it asked before, but to me, the only limiting factor would be landing zones. You have 2 drone ships, right? 2 drone ships on the west coast? No, one on the west, one on the east.
Exactly.
Yeah, one on the west, one on the east. So you have 3 landing zones. And that's why Falcon Heavy makes sense. You can land center core, 2 side boosters, RTLS. So if you were to launch 2 Falcon missions simultaneously near the same time, you could technically have one RTLS, both RTLS, and one land. So the limiting factor is landing zones. That's a great question, Tommy. Thank you for asking that. That's a lot of fun to kind of mull through. Technically they could land them wherever they wanted, but just program it in. But from a safety standpoint, I don't think we'll ever see that. And if we do, it'll be unprecedented, and NSF will be here to cover every millisecond of that launch. And again, as you could see the Frost on the right-hand side, a little bit on the left, you could see it starting to come off that booster, which is the propellant going into that first stage booster. T-minus 28 minutes. Right now, they're conditioning the lines, they're fueling the booster. We should start seeing things start to rise up the tower, right? Or the transporter erector, rather.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the crew access tower there in the middle, we're not able to see some of the preconditioning that occurs. Because, we see the T-minus 20-minute vent, and we say that that's chilling down the transporter lines to the second stage and everything. But you got to think about it sort of like in different sections, right? You got to go from the storage tanks where the liquid oxygen is stored. Then it goes through subcoolers, right, to be able to lower its temperature below the boiling point. Because remember, Falcon 9 uses densified liquid oxygen, right? By freezing, cooling that liquid oxygen further, they get more of it inside of the same volume because it gets denser. And so from there, from the subcoolers, it gets to the launch pad, aka to the Stromback, right? And then up the Stromback to the second stage. And so you've got different places that need to be that you have different places that need to be chilled down and conditioned. So for now, they have all of those lines that go up to the Stromback chill down. Now they need the last part, and that's going to be coming up in 7 minutes from now, and that's when we see that Stromback vent that we usually see at T-minus 20 minutes, right? And so that, you can think about it also. We see the same kind of thing, for example, at Starbase, when we see first some of the tank farm activity, and then we see the subcoolers getting very active, and then from the subcoolers we go to the OLM vent and the tower vent, right? There is a lot more visible because the rocket is quite more massive. It's about 10 times the mass of the Falcon 9 rocket when fully fueled, right? And so the tank farm is also a lot more massive, and it's a lot more visible, and all of the activity gets a little bit more noticeable than the one for Falcon 9. But all of that I just mentioned also happens for Falcon 9. It's just that, apart from it being also smaller, there's a lot of vegetation in the way. You can see right there on your screen. It's not as easy.
Yeah, a lot of people in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm watching the chat and I'm watching the Frost crawl up this booster. A lot of folks are talking about their Flight 8 patches are coming in the mail. I got mine just a couple of days ago, and they are absolutely awesome. They look really, really good, and I think there are still some available. So shop.NASASpaceflight.com if you still want to grab a Flight 8 patch. And of course, the stickers are available and probably will be for a long time. And since people brought that up, we've got about 5 minutes, Alex. Let's talk about real quick, and we're going to come back to this Falcon 9 launch, but a lot of people are asking about Flight 9. What's the schedule? I mean, there's a ton of information, a lot of questions coming out. Like, are they going to reuse a booster? Are they going to use a new booster? Let's just take a second and just let everybody know what we know as of right now, which really is exactly what you guys already know. We don't know when it's going to launch. We don't know if they're you're right. I mean, what do we know?
We don't. Unfortunately, we don't know much other than, it seems like we're going to get some kind of testing later this week, maybe, of the booster, probably booster 14 by all means. Like it's kind of looking like that it's going to be 14 that they're going to be using, bearing any surprises, right? But yeah, it's all that we know right now, that they are preparing for it. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know of any sort of changes, for example, to the ship to avoid what happened on Flight 8 and things like that. So we just got to keep looking and waiting for whatever happens.
Just like you, we're watching Starbase Live, which is one of our 24/7 live streams. You can see what's going on. You can see our dailies, what we call the dailies, but you can hear DOS. Somebody said I was saying that wrong. It's DOS. I know how to say DOS. You can listen to DOS, or you can listen to Alex or Adrian do some of our Starbase daily, what do you call it, commentary, I guess, right, Alex? If you speak Spanish, if you speak German, if you speak English, if you speak Klingon and just want to hear the noises, you can do that too. And then also you have Starbase updates, and then our This Week in Spaceflight. So a lot of ways to see what's going on with Starbase and the upcoming Flight 9. And you'll know when we know, because as soon as we know, we'll let you guys know what's going on with Flight 9. So I appreciate all the questions that are coming in at NASASpaceflight. Keep them coming in. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Like this one from Tampa Bay at NASASpaceflight. How far into the mission can people from Tampa Bay see the flight? Max, do you have any idea if they can even see it from Tampa Bay? I have no idea.
So from night, a flight either from KSC or Cape should be easily visible from that side of Florida. And for those who aren't familiar, Tampa Bay is on the western side of Florida, whereas of course we are on the eastern part of Florida. It's only about a 2.5 or 3 hour drive in between the two, but I'm not exactly sure when exactly. So for a night launch, I'm not exactly sure at what point in time it would be visible. I want to say anywhere from maybe 20 to 45 seconds, it'll start creeping over the horizon for you. But daytime launches are a lot more difficult to see that far away, simply because the bright exhaust from Falcon 9 doesn't have a dark sky to contrast against. That's also assuming the weather in your area is cooperating and you have a clear visual in that direction. So under good circumstances, I want to say anywhere from 20, 30, 40 seconds in, that should become visible in your area. But of course, if that's also assuming weather's good. So I have not watched a launch from that side of the state, but I'm just guesstimating.
Yeah, I actually don't know how far away you can see a launch. Obviously, you said at night, that would make sense. You see the big star going up. I've actually not been to Florida for a launch. I want to get down there, come hang out with you in the field.
You
not
should.
On a day when it's not when it's 96 degrees though. But I want to come hang out with you. I've had the opportunity to go out to Starbase many times for a Starship launch, so I know what it's like to be as close to a Starship as you can get and watch it launch and listen to the sonic booms as the super heavy booster comes back and gets caught, and the roar of the engine when it hits you from 6 miles away. I can imagine the same thing happens on those RTLS missions down in Florida, Max, when they come back and that sonic boom hits you and you're tracking boosters and all kinds of stuff. So it's got to be a lot of fun. I definitely got to get down there.
Can confirm you do, and just also for the record, we had all of that before Starship, so you are due.
Yeah, it's not a race, but we love to see them every time they launch. It doesn't matter. I don't care what the launch provider is. I was talking to Adrian the other day. It's like, man, I want to come to that ESAR launch in Norway so bad. But I mean, it's in Norway, dude. I'm not in Europe, so I don't know. Someday we'll see them all. And someday we'll get Alex to come to Starbase. How about that, Alex?
I don't know about that. I've been told that I give a lot of bad luck to launches when I go to the US.
Ryan Caton came in and he got sick, and he was so sick the entire time, and then they scrubbed, and then boom, he was able to jump in and have some fun. So it was a fun launch. So we'll do the
I
same
went
thing
to
on
the
Flight
US
9.
twice and I didn't get sick. So
Yeah.
just saying.
On your screen right now, folks, is Starlink 680 as we come up to T minus 20 minutes, so just over 20 minutes. And we should start to see from the
There it
strong
is.
back here. And there it is right on your screen. Now, tell me what's going on with that vent.
Yeah, well,
Alex.
pretty much what we were talking about before, right? That they need to condition those lines. Max, how hot did you say that it was there in Florida right now?
It is about 86, 87 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around 29 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, so that liquid oxygen that they're going to be flowing into the liquid oxygen tank on the second stage, that's roughly minus 200 degrees Celsius, which I think it's something like minus 350 Fahrenheit or something like that. Somewhere around that, Google is free for now. And so one of the things that happens is that you kind of need that line that is at Florida temperature to be down to those very cryogenic temperatures. So the venting that we see there is some of the gaseous oxygen. They flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the line. The oxygen, of course, boils off, and so it needs to vent somewhere, and that's what that vent is for. And the white in particular is from the humidity of the air because it's a very cold oxygen, even though it's gaseous, but still very cold. So that sort of condensation appears as it gets vented.
Well, you say Florida's super hot, but also it's worth remembering that even at 29 degrees Celsius here, even if it was like 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, the temperature differential from
Like
that.
Norway.
Yeah, exactly. The
Like
temperature
Norway.
of that, even by comparison to liquid oxygen, is still immense. And so even when it's zero or sub-zero temperatures, you still need to thermally condition your lines because to your locks, the lines are still screaming hot. So it's worth noting that no matter what temperature it is outside, whether it's hot or cold to us humans, to the life or the perspective of locks, it is still incredibly hot. So thermal conditioning is incredibly important.
Yep, you're totally right.
And you both are totally right. And allow me to welcome you into the Starlink 6-80 launch here from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Gene Rowley for NSF, joined by Alex and Max, who is in the field. And we are looking at his camera right now. We are NSF, NASASpaceflight.com. And this is the Starlink 6-80 mission with booster 1080 on its 17th flight on the stand at Space Launch Complex 40, call it Slick 40. It is carrying a batch of 28 V2 mini satellites. It's going to be launching to the southeast, passing just northeast of the Bahamas. And the first stage, hopefully landing on a drone ship out there, just to read the instructions, bobbing in the Atlantic. We love the fact that you joined us today, and we are at T-minus 17 minutes, just over that. And what you see on the screen, at the bottom of the screen, you see the frost line coming up. That is the propellant load for the booster, the first stage of this Falcon 9 rocket. And the vent you see about halfway up is the conditioning line that usually happens at about T-minus 20 minutes, which is what we were just talking about and why that is so important to condition those lines, because you don't want to put cold propellant from, what are you guys doing in the back channel? They're doing math. Minus 200 degrees Celsius is minus 328 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh,
Alex,
yeah,
did I just steal your thunder on that? Because you just posted that.
Yeah, because I sort of eyeballed it before when I said, it's roughly minus 350. I wasn't that far off. I was off by like 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which, at minus 300 and something, that's what, 10% off? So, yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And of course, you can ask us questions at NASA Spaceflight in the chat on YouTube, and we will get to as many questions as we can. As we are just over 15 minutes away from the first T0 of this launch. And all indications right now are that they are definitely going for T0 in about 16 minutes. Let me thank some folks here. Shadow Gunner 66, a $5 super chat. Max, this is a question for you. How close can non-press people get to the launches from Slick 40 or 39A?
So depending on the pad, If you are not credentialed media or an employee of either Cape Canaveral Space Force Station or the Kennedy Space Center, the closest you can get to a launch pad is either from the Saturn V Center over here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, which is just north of the Vehicle Assembly Building. Sometimes they offer, or sometimes they charge for that viewing, sometimes they don't. So it's either from the Saturn V Center, which is about 3.5 miles away, about the same distance that we are here from the press site, or if you're really lucky, if Playa Linda Beach is open for Pad A, that's about, and depending on what boardwalk you're at, it's anywhere from 3.3 to 3.8 or 9 or 4 miles. So pretty close, even on public property, or even over at the complex north of here. But for Slick 40, it's pretty difficult to get close. You have to either be a member of the media over here at the press site, or for launch viewing over on the Cape Canaveral Space Force side for viewing. Good Lord, I can't talk. It's getting too hot. So public-wise, it's probably across the river, somewhere over in either Cocoa or Port St. John. Probably that's ranging anywhere from 9 to 12 miles usually. But for 39A, it can be anywhere as close as 3.5 miles or just under 4. So pretty dang close, if you ask me.
Yeah, that is close, much closer. I think out of Starbase, the closest you can get is just about 4.5 miles away there at Rocket Ranch. Shout out to 66, also gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you for spreading the love, spreading the rocket support around, as we too love rockets. Todd Johnson gifting 10 Red Team memberships. We appreciate your generosity, Todd. And again, thank you. If you receive one of those in the chat, say thank you to Todd. Let's see who else. Magnum becoming a Red Team member. Welcome to the family, Magnum. I clicked the button. I know I did. Yeah, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. It's your support that keeps us going and allows us to grow and bring you more coverage of these rocket launches from around the world. As you saw, if you don't know what we're talking about from the rocket test in Norway, really, really interesting. Adrian was there, did a great job with his broadcast. And, it's a test flight. So if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. Go watch it on NSF. You can see it in our YouTube channel after this one, of course. And we have another one coming up later tonight. The Fram 2 mission. Alex, a lot of people in chat are asking about Fram 2. So Ari wants to know, can you give us a rundown? We highly recommend that you set a reminder for this one tonight. This one's going to be one to remember because it's a historic mission. Give us a quick rundown on Fram 2.
Well, it's going to be overall the first polar launch of a crew spacecraft into, or a crew mission in general, into polar orbit, right? That's going to be heading, doing the sort of, South Polar Corridor, going around the Florida Peninsula instead of going south in direction of Cuba and everything, right? And Central America and all of that. And so we're going to have 4 people going into that sort of trajectory, into that sort of orbit. They're going to be spending about 3.5 days, if I'm not mistaken, was the sort of mission duration that they're going to be spending. And in that time, they're going to be able to perform all sorts of, different experiments, but also observations of the Earth from that orbit, which no other human has been able to observe with their own eyes, except, let's say, the Apollo missions that went all the way out to the moon, and so they were able to see some of the polar caps and things like that of the Earth, and that's one of the things that really that really sets this mission apart. That it's going to be that first polar mission. We just got an update from SpaceX. They say that teams are continuing to monitor weather conditions ahead of tonight's launch of Fram 2. And that the weather is 60% favorable for liftoff. One of the things of this mission is that since it's not targeting the ISS, for example, it doesn't have an instantaneous launch window or anything like that. It actually has 4 different launch opportunities over the course of tonight. So the first opportunity is at 9:46 p.m. Eastern, and the last one is all the way to 2:26 a.m. Eastern. So they have plenty of time to be able to launch tonight if the weather is a little bit iffy, for example, at the beginning, then they can move a little bit further into the window and target other launch times for that mission as well. As for us, NSF, covering that, we're gonna be starting around T minus 3 hours or so, a little bit over T-minus 3 hours. And so we're going to be covering all the way from crew walkout. We're going to see, walking through the crew access arm and everything, and following all of those updates as they prepare for the liftoff. If it delays, we'll also delay, of course, our stream. If it's before we go live, of course. If we are already live, then we'll figure out what we're going to do. But we'll get there when we get there. But that's one of the things that we are going to be doing in just a few hours. So it's already there on our channel. So if you go to our channel and you go to the live portion of the channel, the tab that says live and things like that, then you can go and set up your reminder so that you don't miss it and can keep track of that. And we'll give lots of more updates, lots of more information about the mission during that coverage. But today we have that, like right now, this stream is about Starlink 680. But people were having those questions. That's a little quick rundown, and you can get more information later.
And a great broadcast crew tonight for the Fram 2 mission. Jack will be hosting. I know Sawyer's going to be in the field. Julia, Max will be there. Alex, you'll be answering questions about why it's such a historic mission and why it's called Fram 2. A lot of people are asking, why is it called Fram 2? Well, Fram was actually a sailing vessel that went through around the Arctic. So this is kind of the space version of that, and that's why they're doing that. But on your screen right now,
what country that was?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask me. It's
Norway.
Norway.
It's all connected. We just had a launch from Norway. One of the astronauts is also at least partially from Norway. So yeah, that's interesting.
And it's
Anyways,
privately
continue.
funded. Yep, privately funded. People want to go to space, and they're going to take X-rays. They're going to do all kinds of fun stuff. Read about it on NASASpaceflight.com if you haven't. It's a really, really interesting mission. And on your screen, we've got Starlink 6-80 at T-minus just under 9 minutes. And Alex, what's going on right now with this vehicle at under 10 minutes to launch?
Yeah, we're going to get that final few minutes. So right now they are getting through the last portions of the RP1 load on the first stage. It uses the fuel is kerosene, liquid oxygen deoxidizer. In space there's no oxygen, so you need to bring it along for the ride, right? So that you are able to burn that kerosene. And so that kerosene load will wrap up at around T-minus 6 minutes into the count, right? And then we're gonna get also at the same time, in about a minute or so at T-minus 7, the engine chill of the engines on the first stage. We're going to go through and also get to the portion of Stromback retract, T-minus 5 minutes. The clamps will release. The Stromback will retract 1.8 degrees away from the rocket. We're going to get to liquid oxygen load on the first stage, wrapping up. Then second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. It's a lot of things that go on there. Things like, computers aligning, the FTS being armed, and all these many things that happen. Last few things will be at T-minus 1 minute. The ground computers will hand over control of the count to the onboard computers on Falcon 9. They're going to be in control of that countdown, following all of the different checklists and everything. They're going to be making thousands of checks per second and being able to make sure that everything is good for launch. Also preparing the tanks for flights, pressurizing them and everything, conditioning some of the last few equipments and everything. So, hopefully we'll get to that in just 7 minutes from now to that liftoff.
Yep, and you'll see those views from Max's cameras. You'll also see some of our robotic cameras in the as a tracking. I know Pizza is. I don't know if Pizza's tracking today, but I know Gage is tracking today. They do an amazing job robotically. We have a lot of questions. I'll get to this one real quick. This is kind of a go around the room question. At NASASpaceflight, Pop Trip. I keep saying this name wrong. Pop Trepica. At NASASpaceflight, are crewed missions like Fram 2 more exciting for you than routine Starlink missions? I'll answer first. Let's go real quick. No, I don't think so. To me, it's all about the rocket launch. Now, you do add the human element in a crewed launch because everybody's on their game just a little bit more, I would assume. But to me, rocket launches are rocket launches. I like the hype of the crewed missions, which you'll see tonight during Fram 2. Max, I'll come to you. Which is more exciting to you?
I often pondered this question myself. Whenever there is a Dragon capsule out on either LC-39A or Slick 40 with crew, that mission always hits a little bit different because the payload is a lot more special and a lot more precious. So just the atmosphere around KSC and Cape is a lot different. It's a lot more serious. There is also certainly a lot more buzz and excitement in the air. So, and for missions like this, which are a first in itself, I would definitely say crew missions are a lot more exciting to cover more often than not. I can't really recall a time where a crew mission was boring to cover because that's probably never going to happen. But there is a certain buzz or excitement around crew missions for sure, and today is certainly no exception.
Yeah, I agree. Now go off comms. We are T-minus 5 minutes. Go get us some great footage, will you?
Thank you very much, gents. I will see y'all on the other side.
Roger that. Alex, what do you think? Crewed missions or any rocket launch?
I think it's like spices, right? There's some spices that is just a little bit spice, and then there's also, the red hot ones that really are, very, very spicy, right? I'm liking it to that because I like spicy food. But one of the things that I will compare this is like, yeah, I think every launch is exciting. There's just different degrees of excitement, right? A Starlink launch is still exciting in my opinion because it's still a rocket launching and also landing as well. But of course, when there's humans on board, it's quite more exciting because there's that human element, as Max was talking about, right? And it's always cool to see a smile on their face as they fly into space. I think that's always amazing.
Yeah, I would love to do it in my lifetime. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, if it's going to be a place where just ordinary people can get on a rocket and fly to space. We'll see, without having to spend, a couple $100,000. We'll see. One of those things that gets me about rockets is that we can share it with everyone. If you are a space nerd, if you grew up with sci-fi novels and TV shows, you're watching history being made literally with every launch. This might just be a Starlink mission, but think about where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and where we're going to be in the next 20, 25 years. You can share this excitement with everyone. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, NSF is the place to be to get all your rocket launch information. Like these amazing people, like Philip, who became, Philip's Junk, who became a Pad Rat member. Thank you so much for joining the family. Sharing rockets with your family. I saw the message of people in Naples watching this launch with their parents and things like that. A lot of fun. So keep doing that. Andreas, with the store message, you're amazing. Guys, keep going. Andreas, you're amazing. Let's see what you picked up from the store. We appreciate you supporting us that way. A Rise from the Fire metal print. That's a good one. That's one of the Starship launches. Some of the proceeds actually go and help the photographers rent their lenses, and Jack will talk about all that stuff. Ed Wagaman, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. We appreciate you joining the family. Woofy, becoming a Red Team member. Welcome. Todd, upgrading to a Red Team member. So much support today for this. Just a regular Starlink mission. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thousands and thousands of you. If there's one thing we can agree on, we all love rocket launches, and we're about 2 minutes away from this one. Real quick, Paul, thank you for also becoming a Pad Rat member. And then Marcel, go NSF, with your super chat. Thank you. Thanks, Adrian, for the Norwegian co-coverage earlier here on NSF. And yes, if you haven't watched Adrian in the ESAR mission, after this one, between this one and the Fram 2, go and check that one out. It was a lot of fun. Again, it was a test flight. Test flights happen, right? So go and watch, and you'll know what we're talking about. Alex, we're under 2 minutes. So what's happening right now with that rocket? Do we have propellant load on both stages?
It should have wrapped up by now. I'm trying to look for the usual sign of the liquid oxygen load wrapping up. Yeah, I think I see the Stromback vent happening, which is usually some of that indication that liquid oxygen load has wrapped up on the second stage. We are about 30 seconds away from startup. That's when the onboard computers take control of the countdown from the ground computers. So hopefully we get through all of that, and also they go for launch and whatnot. So 1 minute and 19 seconds from now, hopefully we get that launch.
And normally I can hear birds in the background. So I was just verifying that here when they go into startup and this rocket does launch, hopefully just over a minute from now, we're going to be able to hear stuff. like we normally do. And you can see some of the vents are starting to close off. They're getting some of the strong back vents cleaned out. That's what you were saying. There we go. Now I can hear the wind. Excellent. As we are under 1 minute for Starlink 6-80. This is launching booster 1080 for the 17th time. It's going to be launching to the southeast, and you'll potentially hear some of those as it starts to pitch over downrange. It's going to be going just north of the Bahamas, and it's aiming for a low Earth orbit at 43 degrees, and we are at T-minus 20 seconds. Again, just read the instructions, is out there in the Atlantic, getting ready to catch this booster as it heads uphill to space, carrying those 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites. And we are just under 10 seconds, so let's listen in. It will be just a couple minutes after launch, and we'll see you guys on the other side. We'll see the Rainbirds here in a minute, and there's ignition and liftoff. You can see that strung back retract over to the right. Let's listen for that great rocket noise. There's nothing like hearing the roar of those Merlin engines. Our team is doing a great job tracking it through the clouds. Some of our robotic cameras as well. Gage and a couple other folks probably need pizza in the background. And you'll see as the rocket goes up in altitude, it starts to flare out the exhaust as it gets to the thinner parts of the atmosphere. The exhaust flares out on its way uphill. Great tracking work, guys.
Yep, passing max Q, already well past max Q, and coming up on MECO. That's going to be main engine cutoff. All 9 engines will shut down on the first stage. The 2 stages will separate, and then we'll have MVAC ignition on the second stage. Should be in just less than 30 seconds from now.
And another cloud.
There we go. Of course.
we know what happens. Yeah, MECO, the main engines will shut off, and they're already chilling the vacuum engine for the second stage, the vacuum Merlin engine. You can see that plume expanding out. Great onboard shots from SpaceX, and we should be coming up on MECO in just a couple seconds. And Alex, this is going to continue on through.
Oh, look at that. We have it from the ground.
We got it back. We got it back.
Good MVAC ignition. Look at that.
And Alex, the first stage just carries on a parabolic trajectory toward the drone ship, but it also gets steered by those grid fins.
Yeah, so right now, there we can see the onboard footage from SpaceX. So as you can see now, it's going to be deploying its grid fins. Right now it's in space, so it's going to be using its cold gas thrusters to maneuver as it sort of coasts in space. We're going to have fairing separation here right now in just a second or so. And there it is. By fairings, those are going to be recovered. I believe it's Bob for this one. Yeah, Bob is going to be recovering these 2 fairing halves. Now, the first stage is going to continue in this sort of parabolic trajectory. It's going to come down, and as it comes through the atmosphere, it first will do its interburn, but after the interburn, it's going to use those grid fins to maneuver itself towards the drone ship, and it's not going to be entirely maneuvering all the way to the drone ship. It sort of aims a little bit to the side or so, right? And then with the landing burn, it steers itself all the way to the deck of the drone ship. It's a bit, in case the landing burn doesn't occur or it starts a little bit wonky, then that sort of keeps the drone ship from having a nice piercing, I guess.
Well, it does the same thing when we were watching the last Starship Super Heavy come in. It doesn't actually aim for it. It aims for an area near it, and then a little differently on this one, it comes down in the grid fins. You can see when the landing burn happens, it kind of torques over and then gets over the drone ship. So it doesn't actually aim directly for it in case there's an issue, because it just comes. I mean, it's a missile at this point that's going to slow down and hopefully land on the drone ship.
And you see the angle of attack, for example, of the Super Heavy booster when it comes back to the launch site. Falcon 9 does that as well, both for a return to launch site and also for a drone ship landing. Because being able to glide the booster itself, that means it's not spending as much fuel, for example, to slow down, because it's using a lot of the atmosphere to steer itself towards the drone ship, right? Or towards the landing site, depending on where it's landing. And so, that also slows down the booster, and it allows them to use less propellant for the landing burn.
And we are just a little bit away from the entry burn, and this is a startup from the center engine, then two of the engines around it. So it'll start in a circle, and it'll go to a line. And why does Falcon 9, Alex, why does Falcon 9 do an entry burn? We know they can build rockets that don't require an entry burn, like Super Heavy Booster doesn't do an entry burn, it comes back. Why did they design this one to require an entry burn? It doesn't seem as fuel efficient.
Yeah, well, Super Heavy it's also a little bit of a cheater, right? Because the Super Heavy stages at a lower speed, and it also comes back down at a lower speed. Right now, if you take a look at that speed right before entry burn, it's very close to 8,000 kilometers per hour, right? Whereas Super Heavy, it's a bit more between 5,500 to 5,000 kilometers per hour, which in a few seconds, you'll notice that's more or less the velocity of Falcon 9 after the entry burn. So the entry burn puts the Falcon 9 booster at a similar velocity as a Super Heavy booster when it comes through the atmosphere. So that's why Super Heavy doesn't need an entry burn, because it's already slowed, down enough for that entry. So right now, there we can see that entry burn, that speed going down below 5,000 kilometers per hour, and look at that, shutdown. And so it reaches a velocity that is very similar to the Super Heavy booster. On Falcon 9, it needs to slow down to that velocity to at least be even on par with Super Heavy, right? And we already see how Super Heavy gets white hot on the aft end when it re-enters, right? So now imagine that on the Falcon 9 as it does that re-entry right now, which is, sometimes the feed might be coming in and out, but the telemetry is still going every now and then. As you can see there, it updates when it gets the signal back. It's a very active moment right now for that booster. So it's very understandable that sometimes the feed drops.
And it's aiming for an area near the drone ship.
Yeah, and unlike Super Heavy, the Falcon 9 doesn't have a Starlink connection, for example. So it's even more understandable that it drops, because they don't have that sort of ability with Falcon 9. Super Heavy has 4 Starlink antennas, for example, in comparison, whereas Falcon 9 doesn't have any. So, yeah.
And as we come up to that landing burn, I'll throw you a fun question from No Caller ID at NASASpaceflight. How many bananas can fit in a Falcon 9 payload?
A lot, but yeah, we'll see that landing burn.
About that many.
About as many.
There
you can
it
see the
is.
drone ship coming into view here, yeah.
See, now the drone ship does have the Starlink antennas, so that feed will be a little bit more stable, I hope. And also the water deluge ship there you can see, because this is just with the instructions. And
landing legs.
There it is.
Wow, that looked late. Was that me, or did that landing leg lock in place just before it landed? And yeah, it's landed. It looks like it landed on the drone ship. And those plumes of water that are coming from the deck, that's new. That's something they've added, that water deluge system on the drone ship, right?
Yeah, and believe it or not, like it's new in time, but since they launch a lot, it's actually being, I don't know, like 20 landings ago or something like that on that drone ship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been in use for a while. And there you can see Seco 1,
There's Seco.
second engine cut off. We are in orbit. There we go.
Yep. There you go. And
Ooh,
we're
we have
back. Look at
replays already.
that was fast. So on the left-hand side of your screen are the replays, and the right-hand side is a live view. There's from the press site. If you haven't actually seen a launch, look at that beautiful shot.
Going through the clouds. Ooh, we have audio, I think.
You can just hear it. It's quiet, but it's there. Yeah, that's great tracking. And again, we had, Max in the field with his camera, tracking it through the clouds, and several robotic cameras being, they're tracking that Falcon 9 booster on its way uphill. The long shot. And there was Miko.
I mean, you
Now,
could
Alex,
call launching into orbit a very long shot.
you could.
Wow.
Yeah. So is sitting
Hi,
there in the
Max.
field with your back to the camera. Hey, Max, we can see you again.
Oh,
I was
goodness.
Gonna
Hi.
talk about the strung back. Max, you got several cameras there. Why so many cameras?
Because more cameras, more better, Gene. I thought you knew this. I thought you knew this, Gene. More cameras, more better. We have the two cameras directly to my left are supporting the live stream, and the camera behind me was my still camera firing by itself at T0. So, that's a nice replay right there. The live feed.
These are all good.
Yeah.
Speaking of cameras, Paul wanted to know at NASASpaceflight, will you have cameras at the site at Shetland Island, UK?
Hey,
I sure hope so.
can I make a comment about that? So
Yes.
this week we had actually from Saxavord, the COO of the spaceport of Saxavord on NSF last Wednesday, Europe's Future in Space. And I asked her, like, can we put cameras? Is there internet connection? So we'll see. But also at the same time, there's a launch provider that's going to be coming up from that launch site from Saxavord, and they're going to be also live here at NSF this Wednesday on Europe's Future in Space. That's going to be Rocket Factory Oxford. We're going to have the CEO also here on NSF, so tune into that. Thank you, Ryan.
There you go.
There we go.
Awesome.
You can already check that out and click the bell and everything so that it notifies you that we're going live for that.
Awesome. Those interviews that you do are really good. Yeah, you need to tune into those when they do the interviews about Europe's space flight. That's a great shot. Is that you, Max?
That is one of them. Yes, sir.
So pretty. I love it. Rockets, more better. More cameras, more better. More better. Let's see.
More better.
more better. That needs to be on a shirt for Jack. Johnny wants to know at NASASpaceflight, do we know how many direct-to-cell satellites are on the launch today? None. I know that. I can answer that question. There were
That's easy,
28
right?
V2 minis. I like the easy questions.
Yeah.
There were none, Johnny. None were on the launch. Let's see. Is launching Starlinks now and humans later tonight? Yes. What happened to the 24-hour rule? Alex, this sounds like one for you. Maybe Max might know this. Is there a 24-hour rule?
That's for NASA missions, right? There's no NASA mission involved here. The Fram 2 mission is a private mission, right? It's a commercial mission for SpaceX. They are the ones in charge of that. And so they follow their own rules. And as far as I know, they probably have some still, like it's not like they treat their own commercial crew missions like nothing, of course. They are still important. But, it's a less tight than, for example, the rules from NASA, because NASA has other sort of procedures and everything. which you could maybe call a little bit more antiquated, but hey, they've already updated them recently. They had a 48-hour rule a while ago, and now it's 24-hour rule. So hey, they're updating, right? Which is good. And so we're gonna go live for that Fram 2 mission later today. Hopefully at T-minus 3 minutes and 15. Excuse me, not minutes.
3 hours.
3 minutes before launch, we're going live, guys.
T-minus 3 hours and 15 minutes. I was thinking about the minutes, so I should have done it the other way around. T-minus 3 hours and 15 minutes for that launch. If it delays and if it's before we go live, then of course we'll move along, right? And so try to adjust to their timeline. If it delays after we go live, well, we're gonna have to stay around for a little bit longer, I guess. But stay tuned. You have that notification bell, and if it delays, it'll also tell you when it's the when we go live into the later time or whatever, because they have multiple different T0s, so they could target any of those.
So there's a question for you specifically, Alex, and it's specifically about Starlinks. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast during the launch, how many Starlinks are in orbit? How many have re-entered? How many have reached their operate right from This Week in Spaceflight that you guys do, you and Alicia do every week? Brian actually wants to know that at NASASpaceflight, of the number launched but have not re-entered to the operational orbit, how many are on the way to operational orbit versus dead or stranded? Talking about Starlinks. That's a one of those questions. Like,
yeah,
okay, let me do some math here.
That will take a little bit, but there's usually, especially at any time, as far as I know, I think there are around 600, maybe a little bit under that, closer to 400 to 500 if I were to guess.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because it's probably the last 3-4 months of Starlink missions. It takes 3 to 4 months for them to come up to operational orbit, mostly because they use what they're called Hall effect thrusters, and so they are very low on thrust. It's very low thrust, very high efficiency, of course, but very low thrust, and so it takes a little bit to raise their orbit. And also SpaceX wants to have usually a few weeks of checkouts and things like that. They sort of stop them at certain altitudes to check them out, because you don't want to put a potentially bad satellite into a 500-kilometer orbit, which will take months and months or even years to the orbit by itself. And so you kind of want to make sure that you check them out before racing them. So yeah.
Oh, look at that. There's a shot of the clock. Of course, it's stuck at 4 hours. And the Fram 2 patch. What did I say, patch? Fram 2 patch. I'd say that 5 times fast, chat. Good luck. The Fram 2 patch that we saw them put on their missions, and this is a privately funded exploration flight. They're going to be doing some science, and again, it's historic. It's the first time they're going on they're going to cross the North Pole, South Pole. How long are they going to be up there, Alex? How long are they going to be in orbit?
The mission is roughly 3.5 minutes. Minutes.
3.5 minutes.
That's a short mission.
Minutes. I have the minutes in my brain for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's because somebody was talking again about minutes in the chat. 3.5 days long. It's a mission, and so it's going to be coming down. Keep in mind that because they don't go to the ISS, the launch, they don't even have to look at the launch weather, but also the splashdown weather. So the decision to launch today will also hinge on the fact that, in 3.5 days from now, they need to come back to the Pacific. It's also going to be the first mission that's going to be splashing down off the coast of California. So yeah, that's one of the things as well that they need to look at. It's just not the launch weather and even the abort zones, which are also unique for this mission because they're going south, right? All of the other missions have gone northeast, sort of the same inclination as the ISS. So this is going to be a one-off kind of thing. So yeah, lots of things to play with tonight. We'll see if they are able to hit that, those different 4 opportunities that they have tonight.
Well, there is the rocket getting ready, hopefully, for a launch tonight. And NSF will have their live coverage 3 hours, not 3 minutes, 3 hours before launch. So tune in for that, of course. As Alex said, hit the bell, hit the notification bell, and get reminded. Real quick, Rick, thank you so much for that super chat. He says, thanks, NSF. Thank you, Rick. We do this because we love it. And if you are watching later tonight, Sawyer Rosenstein is already in the field, and there's a shot from him on this mission, this Starlink 6-80 mission. So that's some of the angles that you're going to be able to see tonight during the Fram 2 mission. So Sawyer, thanks for sending that in. We appreciate it. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. They're lowering the Strom back, and you know what time that is. It's time to start thanking people. Be sure to follow NSF on all of our socials. Follow us on X, follow us on Blue Sky, follow us here on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, follow us anywhere you see NSF and the logo. We bring you as many rocket launches as we possibly can. They're going to flash them up on the screen here in just a second, I guess, Ryan. And be sure to pick the social of your choice. I'm on Facebook. I do a lot on Facebook. And you can follow it there, NASASpaceflight.com, and then all of the other ones. Thank you, Ryan, for that. We had kind of a handover in the back room there. We started off with Chris Atherton, who was pressing the buttons in the control room, and then Ryan took over. So thank you both for doing that. I appreciate all of the hard work in the control room on this mission for Starlink 680. Max in the field. You packing everything up, or are you just going to move locations to another?
I mean, it'll
Max, do we
be
have you?
yeah, you got me. It'll be somewhat of a pack up, but it'll be mostly a relocation for one of these cameras, and then I'm going to be building the robo tracker head that we have for the mission later on tonight, so we can use that to track it all the way down range, because it is going to be a rather unique viewing experience here from the press site, because from our perspective here, Falcon 9 will be flying right along the coast, and we will have a borderline side-on profile of Falcon 9, which we never get here. So
Wow.
we are going to have quite a unique view, but it has been a pleasure as always, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to hang out with us for the appetizer before tonight's main course, main event. So we will hopefully see you in just a few hours. Don't go far.
Another slow-mo on the left-hand side there. Alex, thanks for hanging out with us. Go get a nap before your launch tonight.
Oh, there's no nap for me. I already had a coffee, very big coffee, so there's no nap. Just pulling through all nighter.
Engage and Need Pizza were both, I think, operating our robotic cameras today for this launch. Gage, thank you so much. Chris Atherton, thank you. Ryan Caton, thank you. Need Pizza, of course. We think he's AI, but who knows? He might be real. This has been Starlink 680, another NSF live stream launch. Be sure to hit that bell notification for the Fram 2 mission later tonight. Jack, Sawyer, Alex, the whole team. Julia will be there. Max will be there. It's going to be a whole lot of fun tonight for that launch. Historic launch tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. We love each and every one of you. Be sure to become a member of NSF at your next earliest convenience, and we'll catch you in the next one. For everybody at NSF, I'm Gene Riley. Remember, dream big and keep your eyes on the stars.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FTE off. Bring in FTE off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.